I remember I kind of had to stop and I'm like, buddy, this might be our last trip. And he goes, "No, come on." And I'm like ever, this might be it. And, he thought I was just messing with him, but I started doing the math for him. Like, listen, next year you're going to be on a high school baseball team. I know what the high school baseball team's doing during spring break, and it ain't letting you go to Lakeland for a week with your dad. That'll go for 4 years. Then you'll be in college. I know what you're going to be doing on spring break in college, and it better not be hanging out with dad. So we better friggin' enjoy every minute of this, because I said, the last time I went to spring training with my dad, I certainly didn't think it was the last time. I didn't think that was it. I thought it was like the greatest trip ever, but I had no idea that was the last, like, really long, just me and dad hanging out trip we would ever have. And that was, he lived years and years after that. We never did anything like that.
You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Matthews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
It's 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Frankie!
Ian, you cold opening son of a bitch. How are you?
Frankie, I'm doing fantastic. Good to see you, buddy.
Always a pleasure.
You look all dressed up. You look like you've got some business meetings you're going to.
I got something to do.
You got some stuff you got to do today? You look awful profesh.
Yes, Ian has on his Detroit Tiger gear. He's going to tell you a story about that in a minute. I am wearing my professional attire, and I was telling Ian that this reminded me of in the O.J. Simpson trial years ago. Johnny Cochran held up a knit cap, and Norm Macdonald's retelling was, "Hey, be careful with that. That's my lucky stabbing hat." We've all got our outfits, Ian. We've all got our outfits.
Yeah. The Major League Baseball playoffs has started. I am clearly a Tigers fan. Frank is a big Red Sox fan. Both of our teams got a win yesterday, which is exciting. And it's cute. So the Tigers are clearly not the Red Sox Yankees. So we play at 1:00 in the afternoon on weekdays when we make the playoffs.
I don't even know who you're playing.
Where we play Cleveland, the Cleveland Guardians, formerly known as the Cleveland Indians, which
and hopefully Trump gets his way again.
Indian is so offensive to Indians, I know. But the my team plays at 1:00 on weekdays when most people are at work, and when most kids are at school. So I watched the game yesterday, and IJ came home for like the very end of it, and we watched it, and then it was cute. He was like, "Hey, don't watch the game tomorrow. Record it and turn your phone off so you don't know what's going on, and let's watch it on record when I get home from school," because his football practice is canceled tonight. So I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Dad, I don't know how many more times they'll make the playoffs while I'm living at home." And it was kind of like, I paused a little bit and I was like, "Huh, he's not wrong. He's not right. Like, the Tigers could not make it again for 5 years. We went through like 10 years without being in the playoffs, so he didn't want to miss one." And I'm having an awesome week. I was supposed to be in Reno early this week, so I had to clear my schedule like weeks ago. I was supposed to be there for a wedding, and my flight got canceled. So
for clarity, Ian didn't just dip. This is the guy's third wedding, and it was a place that required 2 connections. It was not the most convenient place.
Yeah, my flight was canceled, so whatever. So I have like a clear slate, really, because I was going to be gone on Monday and Tuesday anyway. And I was like, shit, I'm going to be getting back. So I just moved everything. So I have like the lightest schedule ever, but it was great. I found out that my daughter didn't have class on Monday for some, like, I don't know, teacher day or something. And I was in my office just out of habit and, not getting a lot of productive work done. And I'm like, shit, Madison's sitting at home. So I FaceTimed her at like noon, and I'm like, hey kid, you want to go to a movie? She's 12. She's in 7th grade. She's like, yeah.
What'd you
She's
take her
like,
to see?
she's like, she's not doing anything. We went and saw like the darkest Stephen King movie. We saw The Long Walk, which was a wholly inappropriate daddy-daughter movie, but she liked it. Madison doesn't get scared at scary movies. But it's like both of those things, Frankie, recording a playoff game and watching it with my son who's a freshman and banging out of work to go take my daughter to a midday matinee movie, those have a shelf life, right? There's only, I don't know if it's the last time I'll ever do either of them. You never do, but certainly that doesn't last forever, those little moments. And I know there will certainly come a time where I'll be sitting in the office and my kids will both be gone away at college or off onto their life. And I wish I could just bang out and go see a movie or watch the Tigers. So I think this episode, one thing we're just going to chat about a little bit is gratitude and really taking advantage when you're in the moment. Frankie, tell everyone what you like to tell Max all the time. Is something I repeat to my kids.
Yeah, I tell my kids this every night when I tuck them in the bed and I give them a hug. And when they're different sizes, it's like a hug or a cradle or something. But I tell them, I give them a smooch and I just tell them these are the good old days. And I've been telling them to both of my kids since they've been born. And I tell it to them almost every single night when I tuck them in.
It's almost, I love that you do that also. It's almost a reminder to yourself too, to say that out loud. Remind yourself, because when you're a new dad and you're tucking kids in, you're friggin' tired. You've been working all day. You had to give them a bath. You probably changed their diapers. It feels like work, but it's also when you're out of that stage, you sort of miss it. You miss little aspects of it. So I kind of think it's cool that you say that out loud every night. It's a reminder to you that this isn't work. These are the good old days. It's good to say that kind of stuff out loud.
I don't feel like these are the good old days for social media. I think social media is about to get kicked in the throat. I think there's going to be legislation around it and gambling and all kinds of stuff in the next 5 to 10 years. And I honestly think by and large it's right. But one of the things that social media does really well is it sends you videos in your queue that you can watch that are really relevant for you. My wife and I always talk about this. I don't know where it came from, but there's some analogy or adage or video or something, right? And it's like if you are sick of your kids or you're not enjoying the moment or something with your spouse, it's like pretend you're 80 and you can be transported back for a day to this. And there's an entire video that I watched recently that it was basically that. It's the woman who's 80 years old, looking herself in the mirror, and she can't believe how old she looks. And then she's silly to think when she was 40, she used to think she looked old. Or, she was basically going back and having a day at 40. The house was loud. It was messy. Her mother was alive. She gave her husband a hug, and the husband kind of looked twice because, it stood out as something that didn't happen a lot. Like there's all these little things. And what I love about being a dad of a 6 and a 4-year-old at 50 is most of my friends are at least 10, if not 20 years ahead of me with their kids. I had a very good friend in town over the weekend, and his youngest just moved to college. So he's got a 21-year-old and an 18, 19-year-old, right? So it's very different. It's literally a decade and a half ahead of me. So maybe I'm smarter, maybe I'm wiser. I'm certainly older. And one of the things it makes me be really, really cognizant of is being present. And I'm not perfect at it, but I understand I've got a finite amount of time. It took a long time to get here. And even though some of these things could be very stressful or annoying, hey, these are special moments. These are the good old days. And you have to kind of remember that yourself as you go into all these different things.
Yeah. And Frankie's kids are they're 4 and 7 basically, and mine are 12 and 15. So we were talking about this. I can see the end closer than he can. He's closer to diapers than I am to IJ going to college. He's a freshman in high school, so you could start to see the end on some of these things. I've been taking IJ to spring training every year since 2015. since he was a 5-year-old. We were going there, and we would go to Disney, and we would go do Universal. And
I remember the first time you went, you rented basically it was the yellow Trans Am for Bumblebee. Remember that? It was like a pain in the ass to figure out. Yeah.
We always rent a convertible, Mustang, whatever. We get some kind of hot rod to cruise around, and we drive. And we've been doing it for 10 years. It was interesting this year. We were talking about squeezing something in, and IJ was like, I don't know, maybe we'll do that next year. And I remember I kind of had to stop, and I'm like, buddy, this might be our last trip. And he goes, come on. And I'm like ever, this might be it. And, he thought I was just messing with him, but I started doing the math for him. Like, listen, next year you're going to be on a high school baseball team. I know what the high school baseball team's doing during spring break, and it ain't letting you go to Lakeland for a week with your dad. That'll go for 4 years. Then you'll be in college. I know what you're going to be doing on spring break in college, and it better not be hanging out with dad. You better be doing what I was doing, which is having a great time. And so maybe as a grandpa, I'll be coming out here with you, but this is kind of our swan song. So we better friggin' enjoy every minute of this, because I said, the last time I went to spring training with my dad, I certainly didn't think it was the last time. And I was in 6th grade, and that was it. We never got a chance to, because we had to drive. We didn't fly. So it was a 20-some hour drive from Michigan. I didn't think that was it. I thought it was like the greatest trip ever, but I had no idea that was the last, like, really long, just me and dad hanging out trip we would ever have. And that was, he lived years and years after that. We never did anything like that again.
It reminds me of December 2nd, 1985. I didn't know it was going to be the peak. Do you know what it was, Ian?
No.
That's the Monday Night Football where the Dolphins beat the Bears. The Bears ultimately went on to win the Super Bowl that year. They were 15-1.
Was Dan Marino a rookie?
This was his 3rd year. They were in the Super Bowl the year before, but they didn't get back. Patriots.
That was the only L that was hung on the vaunted 85 Bears.
Correct. And the Dolphins
You were at that game.
No, I watched it on TV because we couldn't afford it.
Okay. I was going to say, that's a pretty cool game. That's a legendary game.
But the point is, like, as a Dolphin fan, how could I have ever known that at basically 50 days before I turned 11, the Dolphins were going to have peaked.
That was literally the peak of Dolphins fandom.
Dolphin experience. But it reminds me of something else, because the Dolphins were really important to us. I remember it was like 1985, 1986. My dad had a job, and he quit his job and he started his own business. And it was stressful because he had a job. He never had a salary, but he was a salesman. He had a job. And he quit that job and he decided to do his own thing. And he was taking us to the game to go see the Dolphins. And if we were lucky, we'd go 1, maybe 2 games a year, because that's what we could afford. And what was great about it is my dad was like, all right, we're going to the game. He goes, hopefully we can keep doing this. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I don't have a job anymore. I mean, I bought these tickets when I still had a job. Hopefully we can do it next year, but I don't know if we can. And I remember saying to him, I'm like, well, Dad, should we just sell the tickets and not go? And he goes, no, we're going to the Dolphins game. We already got the tickets. He goes, but just understand that we might not be able to do that again. Ultimately, it was better, not worse, but that was the way he kind of framed it. And I remember going to that game not knowing if I'd come back and how much fun it was. I remember like who they played, where we sat. I remember all of it. We ended up going to dozens of games after that. I don't remember a damn thing, but I do remember that.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's my wife and I watched The Office when it was on the first time. So I don't know when that was, when it started, 2004 or 5, because it kind of coincided with right when we moved to DC. So Jenny and I were making new friends and we didn't have kids. So we watched every episode every week. We loved it. She was still working at the time. And then when COVID came around, there wasn't a lot to do. And so it was on Netflix. So I ended up binging it with my kids. I watched the entire, 9 seasons of The Office with my kids. And it was a blast watching it. But there's a really cool quote at the end of I think it's the last episode or second to last episode. And the actors that we're talking about it, I just saw them on a podcast the other day, and they were talking about the writing for it. And here, have it here. I'm going to play it.
Your incredible line from season 9.
I think about that line all the time.
Yeah. It's like one of the wisest, truest lines in the history of television.
I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them.
It is such a poignant reminder to just take stock because this moment might be some serious good old days.
Yeah. Dwight Schrute versus.
So
that's awesome.
If you're watching it, it's the actor that's, when they show him read the line, he gets emotional because all the actors were feeling that in the moment because they'd been working on this amazing show, which at the time they're stressed out, right? They're trying to make it as actors. They're trying to make the show work. They're trying to figure it out. So there's a lot of times where they just didn't really appreciate it. And they go on to talk about this in the podcast. But when he read that line, it was the actor's line that, for a character he was playing, but all the actors in the actual office were feeling that in the time, that this is coming to an end. And this is probably the peak thing we'll ever do artistically. And now that it's over, we're realizing just how good these times were and how these were the good old days. So you can see him when he reads the line on air, he starts tearing up. He gets emotional because it's exactly how he's feeling, not just the character.
Yeah. There's not a magic bullet to add to that. I think that says it pretty well, right? But I think the lesson in that for all of us is to kind of take stock of it when it's pretty good. And it usually is an older person that points it out, right? Like, hey, just an FYI, it's pretty good right now. Like, you've heard that 100 times in movies and other things, right? Like when Breaking Bad wrapped, they would have that show after it. And the guy who plays Mike, Aaron Trout, who's like the fixer, bad guy kind of muscle. And he was like, I've been acting my whole life. He's ancient. He's like 70 years old. He goes, this is the best it ever was. It just happened really late. And I try and remind people that, hey, it's not always this good. So it's I think there's a lot of easy ways to make excuses in life. And like, if you look around social media and other stuff, like a lot of people are starting to talk about we're soft. And I don't think they're wrong. I think in many ways, America is soft. And where the genesis of this conversation started was like, should teams celebrate non-important events? Like, should they, the Major League Baseball was having a ratings problem. So they expanded their playoffs. And now they have 3 more teams that get in than they used to get in. And the way that
it's a lot more than that. And when you and I were growing up, 4 teams, that was it.
Right.
4 teams made the playoffs.
Well, in the most recent edition, it's 3 new teams, right? So like over time, like, back in the old days, it was like, Babe Ruth went directly to the World Series. I wasn't going back that far.
But even in the 80s, like, we go back to our lives, it was 4 teams, 2 in the NL, 2 in the AL, played each other, World Series.
They added division series, and then they added the wild card. But the point of the matter is, this is because of TV and ratings. And it was things that didn't exist in the old days.
For fans, it's fun to watch your team in the playoffs.
But it's for ratings and dollars is what it all comes down to, right? It's competitive. But the reason it is like, when you look at this and it's like, okay, like Ian wrote a whole article about it. His favorite team, the Tigers, they had a massive collapse. My team, the Red Sox, they got in, right? But it's this expanded, watered down format where it wouldn't have mattered 40 years ago or 5 years ago before COVID. And now they're celebrating getting in. So the one side of it is they're weak. Why would you celebrate that? The other side of it is, well, there's more teams than there used to be, but should we lean into the moment and actually live with it because of the fact that, hey, we got in and we've been on teams that haven't gotten in. I might go out tomorrow and throw my arm out. Tyreek Hill might run a down and out pattern and his leg might bend backwards, and that's the end of it for him. So like, you never know when it's going to come to an end. So there's one side of it is it's weak. The other side of it is they earned it. So it's that juxtaposition of it, and they're leaning into it. They're wearing their ski goggles, and they're drinking their beer, and they're having a great time.
All the old heads are complaining on this. They're complaining that, what the hell are you celebrating, right? The Reds are the 12th team to make it into the playoffs out of 12. And they were spraying champagne all over each other to go get murdered by the Dodgers on their first round wild card series, but they were all partying. And I took the side of screw it. Life's short, champagne's tasty, spray beer on each other. What the hell? Like why? And it's funny, even in the post that I wrote, Frankie, are all these, oh, that's participation trophies and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, all right, I hear some of that. You could take the side of whenever we saw Michael Jordan with champagne, it assuredly wasn't him celebrating making it into the wild card round, right? You would never see Kobe Bryant spraying beer on his teammates for making it to the finals. Like there was only one thing for maniacs like that. But I don't know. Most of us are maniacs. And I think it's fun to celebrate a little bit. There's a psychological.
Before you get into the psychological, I want to say something real fast. I think it fits in really well. So I wholesale houses now. I wholesale 20-ish houses a month, a lot. I did a Facebook post a couple of days ago and I asked people like, hey, who are the biggest wholesalers in Richmond? And everybody's like, you. I'm like, yeah, clearly I know myself. Got it. But like, who else does it, right? So do you have any idea what my average spread is today on a wholesale deal, Ian? Like just ballpark.
You should have responded to all those like, you're goddamn right I am. That answer is correct. We'll send
Let me
you
go get the champagne and spray it on myself with some goggles.
We're going to send you a Let Me Speak to a Manager podcast t-shirt for getting the answer right. I'm number one.
But guess how much I make on average, our company makes on average on a wholesale fee, deal over deal.
$4 million profit.
Jesus Christ, no. The average sales price in Richmond, the median sales price is $385,000. So if we're on average, we make just under $30,000 on a wholesale fee, right? So that's gross. That's like you buy it for $200, you sign it for $230. Do you have any idea how much my first assignment fee was?
$400.
It was like $4,200. And I was sure the whole time for like a week, every time a siren went off, I was sure they were coming to arrest me because I did something wrong. So the reason I talk about that is I say this all the time around here. Like in the NFL, it's like if you get a win, you celebrate the win. And the reason you celebrate the win is it's really hard to get the win. Around here, whenever you get a deal done, you should look at it and say, hey, we got a deal done. We made a profit. Sometimes it's $700, but you never apologize for making a profit because it's hard. And so there's the other side of it. Yes, it's a little bit weak, but it's also, I've not worked my whole life. What if that's the one time that person actually wins a pennant? Like, I still think about this. As a kid, the only time I went to the Super Bowl in all the years I played football, I think I was 7. Like that was it. It was before the Dolphins peak by like a year. Like that was the last one. I never made it back to a championship game. So you never know. All right, go ahead.
I love that too. I love that, Frankie. A win is a win. And your analogy to the NFL, the Lions are 3-1, and I've made a lot about the fact that we sucked for a long time. But they were asking Campbell, like, hey, it was kind of a sloppy game, beating the Browns. And Campbell was like, this was just this last week. He said, it took me till week 13, my first year here, to get a win. I'm not in the business of grading wins. It's really hard to beat an NFL team. Like, I don't care who you are. That team was good out there today and we won. We'll learn from whatever didn't go well today, but I'm past the point of grading my wins. I know how hard it is to get one. And, in the NFL, you're this close. When you're 4-0, you're this close to being 0-4. Like,
correct.
It's just, the
margins
Dolphins
are thin.
beat the Jets. It was a nice win for them. The Jets fumbled like 4 times. The Dolphins could have lost that game.
I've seen them do it before.
Yeah. So
the good news is this:
a win's a win.
By time we're dead, if we don't die tragically in the next couple of years, by time we're dead, it's going to happen where they're going to just celebrate.
That was a really dark thing to say.
Well, if we can make it another 20 years, the good news is they're going to
the cross after you said that.
There's going to be Budweiser and champagne in every locker room after every NFL win.
No doubt. So the in psychology, this is called hedonic adaptation. So this is a psychological phenomenon that refers to the tendency to quickly return to a baseline of happiness regardless of positive or negative events. So this just means that we take positive circumstances for granted while they're happening. the good old days. And we only recognize their value once they're gone and the contrast becomes apparent. In short, we normalize cool things in our life very quickly. Things that were really exciting, that first customer, that first assignment fee. Oh my God, I got paid for this. Once it's the 100th assignment fee, we've normalized it. It's not exciting anymore. Making money is not that exciting. And there are very few things, as I started thinking about this episode, there are very few things that you kind of know you're doing for the last time while you're doing it, right? Like I can think of some. I just wrapped up coaching IJ's travel baseball team. That was like a 7-year job that I had. And our last tournament, I told him, I said, buddy, this will be the last time you ever step into the batter's box with your dad in the first base box, right? I've been there for 10 years. Since he picked up a bat and T-ball, I've been on the field, literally on the field, while he's in the box hollering. Now I sit behind him on his new team. So I knew that going in, and he hit a couple of dingers in that last tournament. It was awesome, like high-fiving your son on the field while he's rounding first. Fortunately, IJ's pretty good at baseball. I got to do that a lot with him as a coach. But the last time I got to remember it, right? There's some things like that you sort of know this is it. I knew that I was never going to play baseball again in high school. So my senior year playoffs was awesome. Every game I went into, this could be my last. I'm going to enjoy it. Now we went on a run and we won the state championship. So I had like 7 games where every one I went into, I just was smiling. I was happy. This was it. But normally it's not like that. But I don't know. For you, can you think of some things where you just sort of knew this is kind of like the actors on The Office? This is it. This is the last episode.
So the two that popped in my head first were my first two, the end of college, right? So the first one was my last day working at Outback. And as soon as I typed it, Ian giggled. He's like, of course. But I remember how fun that was for me. I worked at Outback for 7 years, going back to high school. And I was a legend in that place. Like I'd won Employee of the Year. I had my college girlfriend. That's where I met her. Like it was where all my good friends are. People I keep in touch with still, or from that era. That was my. I wasn't in a fraternity. That was my fraternity. Like that was my spot. And then what was really cool about it is my last day I worked as a bartender. I can't remember what time we closed, 10 or 10:30 or whatever. Like an hour, 2 hours before we closed, all my college buddies came in. So we had we started drinking beers, and like before you knew it, like we ended up closing the place many hours later. We just had a blast. It was like an absolute blast, but I knew like that was it. Right. So, but it's funny because that was it on that one. The day I graduated from college was one of the cooler experiences, right? I had been preparing for about a week to jump out of an airplane the morning I graduated from college. And the whole day was a blast. It was party after party. It was like all these friends, introducing your family to your friends. It was great. And then I remember just being so incredibly present in it. And then it was incredible because you wake up the next day a little hungover. It's Sunday. You're going to breakfast and you kind of look around. You're like, I don't fit here anymore. Like I gotta go. But it was really that fast. Like you went from the absolute peak to the bottom. Like now I'm a townie. I gotta go.
Yeah, that's I remember the last President's Club trip at NVR that I did. I kind of had a feeling this might be it. I wasn't sure then. I was the only person that was having these thoughts, including my wife. She didn't even know I was thinking, I don't really want to be here anymore. But it was the last year I was there, and the trip was always in like February or something like that. And I just remember being like, I'm going to enjoy the hell out of this. Like there were 10 of my favorite people won the President's Club that year. Some of my favorite managers. I cut loose on that trip more than I normally did. Normally I was a really buttoned up executive, But that trip, I really got after it. I partied with the winners. We had some really fun times because I just had a feeling I might not come back on this. I don't like you said. I had that resonated with me. It made me think about it because I just had this feeling of I don't belong here anymore. Not that people around me didn't think I belonged. I didn't feel like I belonged anymore. Like I didn't want to do it anymore. So I kind of had this I'm going to go out and let it rip. I may or may not be here next year, but if I'm not, I want to remember this trip as a good one. And that was my favorite. That was my favorite President's Club trip by far. But there's a lot of things that we don't, when you talk about social media and you talk about things like the last time you picked your kid up. I can't tell you the last time I picked IJ up and like held him right with one arm and carried him around. It's years. He's bigger than me now, right? But I can still pick Madison up. I barely, right? Just she runs, jumps on me when I come home from work today. But there will be a last time she comes running and jumps and is excited to see me and happy to see me. And you don't really know when those are going to be. You don't know when. Most of the time when you do something for the last time, you didn't think it was.
So for me, there's a couple things because my kids are young enough, right, where this really matters. So my kids come in and they will sit in my lap when it's time to read books. And when you're a parent, it's not so much about the firsts, it's about anticipating the lasts. Because they don't tell you, hey, tomorrow I'm not going to do this. It just ends. They just stop. Like, hey, you can sit in my lap? No. Or they just sit on the floor and they don't come over. That picture that I just put up on the screen is our annual picture. I think I'm going to be able to pull it off this year, but Max is like 60 pounds, like 50 some odd pounds. It's really hard to get him off the ground. And Manny's still young enough and still small enough where I can actually pick him up by his feet. But it's so you have to just understand that stuff and realize things are changing. I haven't told you this. This is hysterical. Manny's real name is Theodore. So now he's telling us, call me Teddy. He's old enough where he gets to pick. He may cease to be Manny. But that's part of the process. But he's been Manny for 4.5 years. It's been awesome. But he may become Teddy. But you just don't know. So you have to just be and then sometimes when shit just doesn't seem to be going right, you gotta realize, you know what? It's still pretty cool.
I think probably the message here, and really we're not talking to anyone in particular. We're probably, Frank and I, more than anything, talk to ourselves on this show. But I think for both of us, there's a lot of things that you've accomplished in your career, and I've known you for 20 years now, that I'm just really proud of that you probably have become numb to. And I think one thing that I think you and I are good at as friends is holding a mirror up every once in a while and saying, that's really awesome, man. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, that is awesome. Like I love to celebrate when you have a big win or you sell some things or you build something that's exciting. But I think for both of us, we both get numb that there are some things that you and I accomplish that other people or even ourselves as 25-year-olds would be looking at and saying, holy shit. Are you guys going out and celebrating tonight? That's incredible. It's like, nah, I'm probably going to watch 60 Minutes with Jenny. And sometimes you got to remind yourself that a much younger me would be in awe of something that I pulled off or accomplished. And I think the same for you. And I have to remind myself to have gratitude, right? And not, I can get stuck a little bit in the, I have to. Sometimes my kids will ask me, is it a busy day? Madison loves it. What are you doing today, Daddy? What do you got going on? And I have to be careful not to say, well, I have to meet with 8 people today. I got a really busy day and I'll be stressing out about it. And it's I got to stop that. I need to tell her I get to, right? I get to meet with 8 people today. I have 10 billable hours on my calendar today. There was a time where I didn't have 10 billable hours in my quarter when I first left NVR, and there are some days where I have that. And I have to remind myself that there was a time where I had 0 paying customers for 5-on-4 group. I had 0 people that wanted to go through one of my programs. I had 0 executive coaching hours in my calendar. So those really busy weeks where I'm a little tired and I'm looking at the calendar, I'm like, oh my God, I got a lot going on. I got to remind myself, that's pretty damn cool that you got a lot going on, because in 2018, when you first started, you couldn't even envision what a busy week would look like.
So one of my least favorite things about human beings is how quickly people go from grateful to entitled. It's my least favorite thing about managing employees. So if you're listening to this and you're an employee, the longer you can remain in gratitude for what it is that you have at a job or within employment, the better off it's going to be for everybody involved and the further you're going to go. But if you're someone who has manifest destiny the way that Ian and I do with our lives and our careers, it's up to us to stay hungry and stay foolish. And this is something that Steve Jobs talked about in his very famous commencement speech at Stanford. But this is something I bought 20 years ago. It was painted on the back of a bus, and some guy took a picture of it. I have it framed. It's in my office, and I have one at my house. And it reminds me of this. I need to stay hungry with what I'm doing every single day. And if I'm not hungry long enough, I need to change it. And it's okay to change that over time as you get older, as you have different accomplishments, as the goalpost kind of moves or changes. And that's on us as people, as humans, as all of us. No one is here to guarantee you your happiness. So this entire episode is kind of built around that. Last week, we talked about someone dying tragically, doing what he loved. This week, we're talking about just enjoying the process along the way. And the only person who can dictate what you do in your life and if you're going to be happy with it is yourself. So take ownership of it and understand that. And if there's something that you need to change it.
Yeah, and I think last week when we were talking about the way the internet kind of responded, a lot of that is negativity bias, which is strong in all of us, right? That we tend to find the negative in things that we look for. But if you just kind of switch it around a little and say, okay, what are all the things I'm really grateful for and that I have an opportunity right now? If you just stop and say, what will I look back on in 20 years and say that was the good old days? You'll find all kinds of things to be grateful for in your life, right? Whether it's your kids or your parents being alive, that you can pick up the phone and give them a call, whether it's a fun team that you're working on at work, something exciting, some investment that you have an opportunity with. I'm grateful that Frank and I still find time to squeeze 2 hours out every Wednesday to just hang out. Like, you didn't get the first hour and 15 minutes of today. We were just laughing the whole time, talking sports, talking about bullshit people that we're working with at work, and just even ruminating to come up with this topic. There'll come a time where we're maybe not doing this anymore, and I'll look back at some of these recordings and say, damn, that was fun. That was really cool. Like, just having that window that we protected and didn't let our other business and bullshit get in the way of just kind of having a couple hours every week to hang out. Those are things that I think most busy professionals can get out of the habit of just stopping and saying, what am I grateful for in my life? What are the things this week that I will miss one day? And then how do I be more present? Just how do we be more present in all of those little moments? Be grateful either for the work you have, the people you have in your life, the experiences you have, and what does the opposite of it look like, right? Loud kids making noise and making a mess in your house. What's the opposite? A quiet house. It's kind of sad. A really busy calendar, a really busy schedule, people at work that are not grateful, that are a pain in the ass. What's the opposite? No employees, no business, no income. Okay, I should be grateful even for the imperfect things in my life, because the opposite of them are not so great.
One of the absolute favorite days of my life is August of 1997. I was with my dad, and it was the end of my college internship. I was getting ready to walk into my senior year in college, and I was sitting down with my dad having a coffee, and this is before coffee shops were everywhere. This was kind of a rare thing. And I remember saying something to my dad, and I said, man, if I only knew now what I knew in high school. And he said to me, do you want to say that about college one day? And I said, no, I don't. And I made some changes that very day that allowed me to have the most amazing year of my life. The first two things that came to mind when we said it about last times were that year in college, right? That after that conversation with my old man. And it's incredible, the old people who teach us these things, who help us be present. Like every time I hug one of my grandparents, I always think to myself, I've only got 2 out of 4 left. How many more times am I going to be able to do this? So hopefully this is a reminder in a world that maybe seems like it's going down the tub drain, that it's up to you to control what you can control. Enjoy the little blessings that you probably have taken for granted. Give your wife a little bit of a hug longer than maybe you do. Like, just enjoy those things, because there was once a period in time where you were desperate to have the things that you currently have in your life.
I love it. And for listeners, I'm sure you are very grateful for the Let Me Speak to a Manager podcast. So grateful that you will give us a 5-star review and write a few comments saying you really enjoyed this gratitude episode. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you turn on the subscriptions, make sure you follow us and put on notifications so you know when we come in. And Frankie, I am grateful for you. These are the good old days, brother.
There is no doubt. But as always, I'm running late, so it's time to go. See you, brother.
Let's frickin' go Tigers.
Yeah, let's do it. See ya.
If you like what you just heard, and judging by the viewership numbers, you did, hit that follow button and leave us a 5-star review. It helps other people find the show. It lets Frankie and I know that, a few people are listening to this.